publisher and editor of Politics First. Mr. Marcus Papadopoulos joins us now from the British capital, London. Sir, welcome to the program. Let's start off with getting your outlook on the Mosul offensive and how you see events transpiring in the northern Iraqi city.
Well, I think that the battle for Mosul, now it has commenced, could be a turning point in the conflict in Iraq, much the same as the battle for Aleppo could be a turning point in the conflict in Syria. And I think that the fact that ISIS is now using civilians in Mosul as human shields demonstrates once again the depraved nature of ISIS, the wicked, repugnant nature of ISIS fighters who subscribe to a wicked, odious ideology. And it is very important for people to remember that there is no difference between the campaign to liberate Mosul to the campaign to liberate Aleppo. Aleppo and Mosul are controlled by Islamist terrorists, and there is really no difference between ISIS, between al-Nusra and the Free Syrian Army. They are all extremists and they are all Islamist terrorists. And I think if we go back to Mosul, it is very important that the Iraqi army is not impinged in its attempt to liberate Mosul. And of course, I am referring to blatant interference in the Iraqi government's campaign to liberate Mosul, interference on behalf of Turkey and on behalf of Saudi Arabia.
Well, people are fleeing Mosul as the offensive is taking place there, but also Daesh Takfiri terrorists are reported to be fleeing the city. That also has caused a lot of stir over the past few days to the fact that the ISIL terrorists will be scattering to adjacent areas and close by areas, even some bringing up the specter of many of these Daesh terrorists returning to Europe. What are your thoughts on the issue?
My initial thought would be that perhaps those ISIS fighters should return to the country where they came from, Turkey, to the country where they were trained and where they were equipped, Turkey. But I think that the reality is that many of these ISIS fighters in Mosul, if they are able to retreat from Mosul, then I suspect the bulk of them will try to get into Syria. And it will therefore be very, very important for the Syrian military, supported by the Russian military, to neutralize any group of ISIS fighters who do enter Syria, because there are simply tens of thousands of ISIS fighters in Syria at the moment. And the Syrian army is on the offensive in Syria. It is liberating lots and lots of Syrian territory. And what the Syrian army does not want is thousands more ISIS fighters coming into Syria. So ideally, the Iraqi military and its supporting forces will be able to encircle Mosul and prevent any ISIS fighters from getting out. However, it seems at the moment that Mosul is not encircled by the Iraqi military. That, of course, could change. But if it isn't encircled, then, of course, there is a very, very distinct possibility that ISIS fighters could go into Syria, and they will simply regroup in Syria and attack the Syrian army, which, of course, is not what the Syrian army wants, and is not what anyone who is opposed to ISIS and Islamist terrorism in the world wants to see.
Publisher and editor of Politics First, Mr. Marcus Papadopoulos, joining us from London. Thank you, sir.